my friend, William Michael Cunningham.
All right, I'm going to mic up here. We good? In terms of the mic and the clicker. All right, we got the clicker going here. First thing, the staff. Let me thank the staff here. You guys, all the staff people. Where are the staff people? I see some of you all. All right, well, thank you all for the job. And I also want to highlight, well, where did they go? The high school kids who were, is it past their bedtime? No. All right, stand up wherever you guys are. You know? Thank you all for coming out. What adult life looks like, okay? I mean, you're basically going to go to a lot of banquets and a lot of dinners, that sort of thing, so that you can meet people and network and learn about what's going on. So thank you all for coming, and I hope you guys will. All right. So I'm Bill Cunningham, as was mentioned. I'm going to use this clicker. I know some of you all can't see over here, so I'll walk through the numbers and all of that. I'm basically going to go over the economic situation in Denton, in Texas, and in the U.S. for black businesses, but also for the country as a whole. Before I do that, I am going to tell you a little bit about me. So this is the curriculum. Please do me a favor, two things. Try to turn your cell phones down. I know people have a lot of kids, you've got busy lives, that sort of thing. Secondly, take notes. Take notes. There's going to be a lot of stuff that I think you're going to want to reference later. So let me kind of go over the curriculum. So what we're going to talk about is the Denton economic environment, what to expect, what to do. We're going to talk about something called crowdfunding, which is open source finance, open source financing. And then we're going to go through a couple of crowdfunding campaigns to give you an example of what crowdfunding is and how it works. Now, these comments are my own. They don't represent, I'm chief economist for the U.S. Black Chamber. So, but these comments are my own. They don't reflect the opinions of the U.S. Black Chamber at all. They're not official. All right, so this is me. Basically, as Charles mentioned, I studied economics at the University of Chicago. This is me with my thesis advisor. This guy's name is Gary Becker, and he won the Nobel Prize in 1992 in economics. I saw him at an IMF event in D.C., and he was kind enough to stand next to me and kind of take a picture with the book. You know, when I was there, and I'm in touch with him pretty much on a weekly basis, and I told him, you know, hey, listen, I'm going down to Denton, Texas. And I'm going to talk before a group of black businesses. What should I tell them about the economic environment? I'll key you in on that a little later on, but I just kind of wanted to show you that. Now, in terms of the Denton economy, these are the raw numbers. As you see, this is no surprise to you all. We're in an educational institution. Educational services are the big industry here. Retail, trade, healthcare, and social assistance, arts, actually. Let's get down to manufacturing, other services, professional, scientific, and technical services. Total employment in Denton was about 61,640 in 2013. Now, if we skip forward, this is the forecast. We actually basically see the forecast as stated, right? Educational services at the top, healthcare moves up a little bit, retail falls down a little bit. Manufacturing moves up also. These slides will be made available to you electronically as a PDF. The bottom line is that employment looks pretty good. Texas actually looks pretty good from an economic standpoint. Texas is different. Y'all are different. Right? First Texas guy I met was a guy named Matt Stepovich at Georgetown University. And you know how y'all Texans are, man. He had the biggest heart, and he always had the biggest opinion of Texas. It was the craziest thing. So what that translates into from an economic perspective is an entrepreneurial environment here that you don't find anywhere else. I won't say anywhere else, but it's rare. You don't find the same type of entrepreneurial environment in Texas that you find in other parts of the country. Now, that has nothing to do with government policy. Nothing. Don't buy this stuff from your current governor or whoever that says I'm responsible. No, no. It's y'all. And I'm serious about that. It's you all who drive the economy in Texas and who drive that entrepreneurial spirit. So, and that shows up in the numbers. Now, this is the key chart. I know it's a little hard to read. I changed the fonts a little bit. But what you want to focus on are the differences. This is the difference in employment in Denton in 2013 versus 2016. What we're going to focus on are the blue bars that are above the zero line. So let's look at those. Construction. Now, the reason construction is increasing is because interest rates are low, inflation is low, and the housing market is recovering. Okay? So that's a no-brainer. Then finance and insurance, healthcare, social assistance. Obviously, the population is graying, it's getting older, that sort of thing. So that's a no-brainer also. Net information is another industry that's going to grow in Denton. Manufacturing, that's a little surprising. I'm not sure what's going on. I'll be honest with you. As an economist, I saw that and I said, manufacturing? Denton? Anybody here know? I'm serious about this. Does anybody here have any kind of insight into, are there some manufacturing plants that, you know, have all this apple? Who? Peterbilt. See? See? Okay, so you know I'm not making this stuff up, all right? You can confirm the numbers, all right? So manufacturing is going to increase. That's really critical because you're not seeing that in other parts of the country, right? You're not seeing that at all. So that's a key asset that you have here that you don't have in other parts of the country. You combine that with your entrepreneurial spirit and good things can happen. And then, of course, real estate, housing market coming back. So employment in real estate is going to go up. Transportation and warehousing because of manufacturing Peterbilt, right? So it all syncs together. It all comes together, okay? But for you all and for the African American businesses in Denton, these numbers imply a strategy that you should use to solidify your positioning in this economy. And I'll talk about that a little later. But first, what's the money forecast for black folk? Okay, great, Bill, thank you for the numbers. All right, look, how is this going to affect my bottom line? That's what everybody wants to know. So let's take a look at this. Black population growth is still strong. This is a map that shows the percentage of black population in 2016 by state. Obviously, you're seeing strong growth in the Black Belt. Texas is growing. So all of New York, Michigan, Illinois, Michigan goes to Detroit. California, not so much. The interesting thing about this map is to note if some of the areas that you thought were going to have a strong black population do not. California being number 1. Nevada being number 2. Strong, not bad, but not as strong as you would have thought before I showed you the start. Now, let's take a look at Denton. The yellow area is Denton, all right? This is a map that shows black household income per capita, per person, in Denton, Texas, in 2013. It shows Denton, but it also shows the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So I wanted to give you, place Denton in context. What it shows is that, not surprisingly, black household income per capita in Denton, from a regional perspective, is low. From a regional perspective, it's low. Now, can you all confirm these numbers? Does this look right to you all? Come on, work with me here, people. It syncs with your intuitive understanding of the economics of the region, right? If I put something up here that didn't sing, y'all would say, no, that doesn't look good. But this probably pretty much syncs. What you have these wealthier areas in terms of blacks to the south of Denton. What is this? Irving, Texas? Okay. Okay. All right. So see, y'all know. Again, I'm not telling y'all anything that y'all don't know. All right. I'm just putting it in a certain kind, putting up pretty slides, pictures, stuff like that, placing it in context. So you intuitively know all of this stuff. That's important because at the end of this, I'm going to suggest a strategy. And it's important for me to have the buy-in to that strategy. That's why I'm pointing out that you know this stuff. All right? You know this stuff. This makes sense intuitively. Now let's take a look at what happens in 2016. Houston, we have a problem. All right? Because a lot of those high-income black areas disappeared. All right? That's consistent with what I am seeing around the country. That's consistent with what I am seeing around the country. Why is that? Well, let's think about it. The housing crisis cost black families 54% of their wealth from 2006 to 2012. If you take a look at $1 of black wealth in 2006, by 2012 you had 46 cents left because of the foreclosure crisis. Now here's what happens from a macro perspective with respect to foreclosures, right? The housing market came in. White wealth fell by about 19%. It's already recovered back to zero. Why is it? Because white people were able to hold on to the homes. So the value of the home came back. But if your home has been foreclosed on, guess what? It's gone. It's gone. You don't have that asset anymore. You can't wait around for that asset to come back. This is also why some of the tactics, ethics, lack thereof, with respect to the foreclosure crisis are so important. And why it's important to look at the differential impact of those practices on different populations. We know that there was robo-signing, right? People who had houses foreclosed on them that they never should have had foreclosed. Because the banks did not hew to the legal processes that were in place. We know that. We know that happened. And that's what's showing up here. That's why you're seeing these declines. Now, the other thing that's showing up here is because the Texas economy is so strong, you are getting black population growth, all right? As Charles mentioned, you're getting black population growth, and as Jimmy. So that's also part of what's going on. All right, now given that, here's what I think is going to happen with respect to total black household income in Denton. 2013, roughly about $73 million. Black household income, Denton, Texas. All right. By 2016, that goes up to about 87.5 million. All right. So it's growing. It's growing. It's not growing by enough. I could put kind of the white household. I didn't, and I probably should have. To place this in context, I wanted to focus on the African American community so you can see, it's growing. It's not going by as much as it should, but it is going up. Part of what's driving this, as Jim pointed out on the car over here today, Jim, you said that, when I pointed out that it was a $14 million increase, but that it was not sufficient. You said, well, that's because of the demographics, right? Right. That's because the number of black households is growing, okay? So you're getting black households in, but they are at say that again? They don't have the income. Thank you. So that's part of what's going on. Looks good, but you have to dig beneath the numbers, all right, to really understand what's going on. All right, so what's the general environment? Let's skip to bullet points number 1 and 2. Unemployment, African American, 2013, 11% for African American men, and 5.5% for white men. And it's been very, very high. You've had this huge differential between black unemployment and white unemployment in Texas. In Texas, it's very pronounced. You've had that for the past 5 years, according to the Economic Policy Institute, okay, and others in D.C. who track this sort of thing. Well, number one, you have a hostile racial environment, generally, but especially with respect to employment. Now, I complimented you on being entrepreneurs. So how does that track to being entrepreneurs? Well, if you're an entrepreneur, you're doing your own thing, you're creating your own company, you don't have to hire anybody that you don't have to hire, that you don't want to hire, all right? You can get away with it easier. You can get away with racial discrimination in employment in an entrepreneurial environment than you can in a non-entrepreneurial environment. It's not to say you can't get away with it in a non-entrepreneurial environment. It's just as easier to do if you're in an entrepreneurial environment. So that's part of what you're seeing here. And the second thing is, you don't have the ability to correct it because we replaced Thurgood Marshall with, what's the guy's name on the screen? Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas, right? There's a joke about what percentage of the black vote did George W. Bush get in 2000? He got 100% of the black vote. Because the only black vote that mattered was Clarence Thomas. All right? He got 100% of that. So you don't have the ability to correct the situation. I see you laughing. I thought that was a pretty fun thing. But it's a DC thing, right? It's a DC thing. So you don't have the ability to correct. You don't have the ability to go to the EEOC or Department of Justice or others and correct that situation to the benefit of the society as a whole. I'm not suggesting a selfish strategy here or anything like that. If there's a problem, fix it. This is a problem that we ran into with respect to the housing crisis. Everybody knew, I knew, and a lot of other people knew that there was a problem with the lack of ethics at large financial institutions. They were greedy. They were just greedy. You know that story about that hedge fund manager who made $1 billion in 1 year? $1 billion. You walk in, January 1st, your boss gives you a check. You're the boss. You give yourself a check for $1 billion. That is crazy. That is unsustainable from an economic perspective. Did the guy do anything to create $1 billion of value? No. He traded pieces of paper electronically. That's all he did. All right? You shouldn't pay. University of Chicago economists, I believe in free markets. You shouldn't pay people that much for that. You know, if he cured cancer, give him $2 billion. You have to do that. But so there's an aspect to this that speaks to the culture. It's a change that we need to make. So what should you do next? Focus on construction, healthcare, information, and real estate. Why? Because the past history of African Americans in each of those fields, right? Black people have been involved in construction, engineering. My father was an architect, graduated from Howard University. And his specialty was black churches in Washington, D.C. in the 50s, 60s, 70s. You couldn't ask for a better market, right, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, okay, than black churches. So we have a history. 6 of my aunts, and my mother's family had, on my mother's side, they had 12 children. 6 of the girls were nurses, right? Black females and nurses back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. That was the profession that you went into from a professional perspective, right? It was one of the only ones that was open. So we have a history in healthcare, all right? And information and real estate information. How many people here know that the first version of the DISC operating system was written by a black man? DOS. Look it up. Google it. I'm not making this. Google it. All right? So we actually have a tradition in information technology that has been hidden, that we're not really cognizant of. So we have some skill in that area too, but I'm suggesting that we break the barrier. All right? And real estate. Well, why real estate? Because we need to replace the housing stock that was lost during the financial crisis. Everybody see how this syncs together? All right. So one of the things you need to do is you need to identify specific public sector opportunities and use social media to do so. If you see a construction project going up in your neighborhood, call somebody, text somebody. Hey, what is this? What is this? Who's putting this up? You know? And who are the construction companies that are doing it? I don't want to be, you're a citizen, you don't want to be nosy, but you just want to keep track of what's going on, and you want to use new information tools to lower the cost of doing something. Twitter, Facebook, you know, all of these things, the tools that you can use. And then identify top performing construction companies or skilled craftsmen in that area and slot them into those projects that you've just identified, right? I know a great carpenter, you know, or a black company that's a carpenter company. Slot them into that project using social media. This is how you get this done quickly, fast, easy, and with high return, high social return. And make sure these firms get contracts, not just an opportunity at a contract. I can't tell you how many business fairs I've been to where nothing for any African American company came out of it. You know? So you need to track performance, and you can do so easily. Now, what else should you do now? Well, I'm talking to the African Americans in the room, but also our non-African American allies. Look, y'all can't depend on anybody else. It's y'all. It's us. Okay? We know that because of what happened post the financial crisis. Who were the first employees to be let go? First fired, last hired. All right. If you don't look out for the group, nobody else will. Good jobs with a path for blacks to the middle class are gone. You cannot get to the middle class through Starbucks or Walmart. You cannot. All right? 1 or 2 out of 100 people will. Sure. Sure they will. They'll have the same performance ratio as the NBA. all right? Well, you'll have one or two people that will make a huge, good middle-class salaries. But the bulk of the people who come through those companies will not. So that's not sustainable, that's not smart, that's not strategic. And what I'm suggesting is that we get strategic. Right? So you can't get there through Starbucks alone. You just can't. I'm sorry. You can't get there through a security guard job either. And one of the reasons I'm speaking to this is because this is what I'm seeing in Washington, D.C. and in other cities. You know, there used to be a huge black middle class in Washington, D.C. Huge. All of those good government jobs gone. The only jobs that a lot of black people can get are as security guards. There's nothing wrong with that. I have a cousin who owns a security guard company, and he's doing very, very well. But he's the exception. He's 1 out of 1,000. Right? So that's where the economy is pushing you, but you must do business together. The African American companies. You must. You have to. You do not have a choice. Your economic survival depends upon it. All right? I'm telling you as an economist. Now, the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas is one good target, right? They're here, you know. And they have this thing called the Office of Women and Minority Inclusion, which is supposed to look out for opportunities for women, minority, and veteran companies. Okay? So, and I would look that up. That's one of the terms I would look up. OMWI, Office of Women and Minority Inclusion. OMWI. Google it. Look it up. All right? There are 29 of these offices. And I would call this guy. Tyrone goes 214-922-67. Call the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas and ask for Tyrone Golson. There's his number. All right? Ask him what the Office of Women and Minority Inclusion is doing to increase real contracting opportunities for women, minority, and veteran companies. He went to North Texas. He went to North Texas. Okay. See, I'm not making this stuff up. And tell him I told you to call. Now, here's what Becker said. I promised I would tell you what a Nobel Prize-winning economist said when I told him that I was coming down here to talk to you all, and I was coming down here to talk to black companies, and I was concerned about the economic situation with respect to black companies. He said, be optimistic. He said, be optimistic. Discrimination against black people is much lower today than it was 50 years ago when he first started researching this. And when he first started, he won his Nobel for the economics of human behavior. His first big paper was something called The Economics of Discrimination. And again, this was my thesis advisor, so I kind of followed his research, right? So this is what he's telling me. So you're getting, you know, advice from a Nobel Prize-winning economist, through me, unfortunately, but you know. You still have discrimination, of course, but you also have more opportunities to prove yourself, something that was missing years ago. So this makes me optimistic. If he's optimistic, I'm optimistic. Now, one reason to be optimistic is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding of the Jobs Act. The Jobs Act is a law that was signed by President Obama in April of 2012 that allows you to raise up to $1 million in equity capital 1 month. $1 million in equity capital 1 month. $1 million in equity capital 1 month. Okay. Now, the way it works is you go through crowdfunding platforms. All right? There are 3 types of crowdfunding currently: donations, free money; gifts or perks, which basically I give you a donation in exchange for something; and then equity, investments in which you trade part of the company to the people who are making the donations. Right? Now, equity is listed in red because it's not fully available yet. Right? It's available for something called accredited investors, people with a lot of money. What the Jobs Act does is it makes it available for people who are non-accredited investors. You know, people who do not have a lot of money. The SEC is currently considering the final rules to operationalize this. So those rules will be out in about a month or 2. So that's what I'm down here talking about. All right, now let's take a look at some crowdfunding campaigns. This is called the Pebble Watch. This is the most successful crowdfunding campaign ever. What this is a watch that sinks into your iPhone. And the guy who designed this was a watch guy. He used to work at BlackBerry. He went to BlackBerry and he said, hey, I have this idea for a watch that sinks into your BlackBerry. BlackBerry said, no, that's the dumbest thing we ever, go back to the computer. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. Because I'm a watch guy, and I know there's a network of watch people, right, you know? And I'm one of these networks, and I know. So I'm going to go out, I'm going to design this thing, I'm a prototype, I'm going to go out, I'm going to try to raise $100,000. So you see this thing, a pledge of $100,000 goal below the $10 million. What he did was he created a nice little video. He tried on the prototype of the watch, right? Then he created a video of him using the watch, riding his bike, you know, doing a barbecue, changing the music on his iPad with the barbecue. Things don't know. Things don't know. $10 million in orders for this watch. $10 million from 68,929 people. Who basically, what you're doing basically is you're buying the watch, right? So you give me $100, I'll send you the watch when it's available. When and if. When and if it's available. Now the reason this worked is because this was a watch guy. These guys knew him. You know, there was what happens with crowdfunding, the way crowdfunding works is it's all social media. Where's that social media marketing guy that I was talking to outside? He's probably outside the hall. The way it works is there are two steps, authentication and validation. Authentication is, I am who I say I am. I'm not some 15-year-old Russian kid sitting in the basement. I am who I say I am. Right? Validation is, I can do what I think I am trying to raise the money to do. So those are the two key points, and he had that. He had that. So people knew that he was who he said he was, and they knew, because he was a watch guy and had worked at BlackBerry, that he probably could, you know, design and manufacture this watch. And it worked like a charm. It worked like an absolute charm. Raised $10 million from 16,929 people in about 60 days. Online. Through a website called, this is the other thing you should write down, Kickstarter. K-I-C-K Starter. Okay? The other big crowdfunding platform is called Indiegogo, which is, that's it. Okay? So these are websites where you post product ideas like this, and you invite people in to participate in your product. All right? Give me $100, I'll send you the watch if and when it's ready. Here's another guy who did a crowdfunding campaign, Spike Lee, raised $1.4 million from 6,421 backers for his next movie. And he basically, you know, you donate $10, I send you a t-shirt. You donate $20, I send you a t-shirt and a poster. You donate $50, I send you a DVD of the movie when it's available, a t-shirt and a poster. Now, one of the things that we're seeing with respect to creativity surrounding the crowdfunding campaign is people are using the attributes of the crowdfunding campaign in order to energize their followers. What do I mean? How many people have heard of Veronica Mars, the movie Veronica Mars fans? So they did a crowdfunding campaign to do a Veronica Mars movie, right? So one of the rewards was a walk-on role in the Veronica Mars movie. Okay? So you give me $10,000, you know, and you can be in this movie. You don't have to be Screen Actor Guild or anything like that. I mean, yeah, you can be in this movie. And the role was, you walk up to somebody and you said, Veronica Mars is sitting there with her boyfriend, right? So your role is you walk in and say, here's your check. And then but they had one of those roles sold out first day. They had to have somebody do that thing anyway, right? Because it was in the movie. So they're using roles and assets. What's the term? They're using stuff that they have to do anyway and getting their fans energized to pay them to do this. Brilliant. Brilliant. Worked like a charm. They raised about $3 million. So in terms of kind of getting started, one of the things I recommend is that you have a fast internet connection. There is a free internet access point called Freedom Pop. So I would recommend that everybody go to freedompop.com, and order their free internet access. It's free. I mean, you pay like $5 for shipping or something like that. But up to a certain point, 500 megabytes per month, it's free. I use it so that if I'm in a place where I don't, where I have slow internet access, like a Starbucks or something like that, I'll use this little internet access port to make sure that I have speedy internet access. It works very well. Now, in terms of crowdfunding, I'm not going to go through all of this because I talked a little bit about this. In terms of crowdfunding, you basically structured the crowdfunding campaign to appeal to your supporters. The first big crowdfunder was, of course, Barack Obama. And he raised $800 million for his presidential campaign. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Now, let's see here. All right, so for Denton, here's what I would suggest. I suggest you take $1 million of that $14 million growth in income that we talked about between 2013 and 2016 and devote it to crowdfunding black businesses in Denton. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to have the $1 million in the bank. Everybody here is going to donate $10 to a crowdfunding company doing something that they like, right? It's all free market based. It's all about your preferences. It's also all about the talent of the people who are doing these crowdfunding campaigns. If they can't excite you, like that guy did with that watch, then don't give them money. Right? That's when what happens is, this is a great way for determining pre-demand for products and services, right? So it's revealed preference, revealed demand. So this is something that Denton might want to take a look at. You might want to take a look at saying, hey, look, we are going to, as a community, and let me say this about Denton, all right? So, I came in today, y'all have a different type of community too. I mean, you really do. It might be because of the educational institutions here or something, but you're tighter-knit. You can move together faster and better than a lot of other communities, it seems to me, as an outsider coming in and looking. All right? So that makes this feasible. That means you can do this. All right? And again, $1 million over the course of from 2013 to 2016 is not much. But the impact on economic activity in your community will be huge. It turns out that a dollar that's circulated in a community has the potential, if it stays in that community, to generate a small economic boom. You have not seen that research come out yet because of the way in which dollars circulate in the economy. Thank you. This is why there's so many problems economically in the black community, because we do not hold on to our dollars come in our community, they go immediately out the door. Immediately. That's why there's a problem generating sustainable economic activity in African American communities, in the legitimate business communities in African American communities. So this is a way to start to do that and energize the community economically in ways that make sense. Now, this is a slide, and again, anybody who wants this can have this. This is from the book, and it's basically 10 slides that you should have if you're looking to raise money through crowdfunding, through equity crowdfunding. So, information on you, a summary, who's working with you, what's the problem, what's the solution, marketing, sales, competition, milestones, and money. How much money do you need? So, I think this pretty much covers it. I mean, there's some other resources that you can look at. I've given you a couple of websites tonight that I would strongly encourage you to look at. The other one for the elected officials and the wannabe elected officials in the room that I would look at that sinks into the strategy that I've suggested tonight is this. This is the last website I'm going to lead you. Kickstarter.com/SeedChicago. Kickstarter.com/SeedChicago. The city of Chicago has a crowdfunding website. And what they do is they use it, so you're in Chicago, you've got a business or a social service entity in Chicago, and you want to raise money for a after-school computer program for low to moderate income people. City of Chicago looks at you, they say, okay, where is she in Chicago? How long has she been in Chicago? They do the authentication and validation, okay? They do some of that authentication, and then they put you up on their website. And then it's up to you to go out to your network and say, hey, I'm on the City of Chicago official sponsored website, and please donate $1, $2, $10, $5, $20. works like a charm. And the city of Chicago doesn't have to put up a dime for this, right? So far, they've raised about $1.5 million, you know. Doesn't sound like much, but it's $1.5 million in dollars going to community-focused projects that the city of Chicago does not have to come out of their pocket at all, to an energized community. So that's something to keep in mind. We're looking at doing those for, I'm obviously pretty enthralled by this. So I'm going around talking to a lot of cities about this. And there is great demand, there's great need, of course, for these types of resources. So it's something that I would encourage you all to consider. So again, I want to thank you all for your time. I hope this was helpful. I hope you took some notes. And I want to thank you for your hospitality and for inviting me. Thank you.